as a little bit of a segue here, unless you had more on Jimmy Dore. The real problem, I think, Gavin, I've been listening to the Young Turks, the home of progressives, and I think the real problem is that the left isn't just, we're just not very good drinking buddies. I always thought Gavin and I were great drinking buddies. I always thought that I was a really experienced drinking buddy. I even offered to let bygones be bygones and buy a couple rounds for our man Cenk Uygur.
I know, we both did multiple times on this show. We've extended the offer. At one point, I think I even said, come to this fucking house. It's not even my house. It's your fucking house. I invited Cenk to it. I was like, come on, bro. We'll get you the beer. We'll have a pitcher of fucking beer.
100. But, you know, for whatever reason, he just doesn't think the left's very good drinking buddies. Let's hear from the horse's mouth. Let's hear what his most recent gripe with the left is.
Also, this is a recent video, but it says gear up for 2024. Does he mean gear? I think it's supposed to say gear up for 2025. Right?
LOL. It would be supposed to say that, but you know that there's budget costs because it shows like the Vanguard were taking food out of their mouth.
They can't update their graphics. I'm like, come on, bro. It's literally like not 2024 anymore.
8 days, 7 days. This came out last night. Anyway, shout out to Hank for sending me this link.
The 3 rules I laid down for the internet, I laid them down. I suggested for the internet, if people like them, both for the right and the left wing, is when we disagree, we fight. Afterwards, we have a beer together. And number 3 is when we agree, we unite, right? But what has been the reaction to that? Everybody agrees with rule number 1 and rule number 3. Actually, some on the left say, no, I don't even agree to rule number 3. If they come to us and adopt our position, they're still Nazis and racists, and I hate them and I'll never talk to them. And I won't even take yes for an answer. I won't take yes. I'll say no. I'll flip my position and become a right winger just to defy the MAGA guys. So that's
insane projection in this clip. We have more to get to. But I just wanted to ask, Gavin, why have you changed all of your opinions because Cenk has them and other right wingers have them, and now you're the real Republican, not him, man?
Oh, what can I say? He called us out, bro. We're the actual grifters or something. We're the actual right wingers or something.
Talk to me, okay? But for the beer part, that's the most illustrative because every right winger I've talked to, host or audience member, says, "Oh yeah, definitely." They're willing to have a beer with trans people, Muslims. You name it, anyone. They say, oh, yeah, we'll have a beer, no problem. I go to the left and they're like, a beer with fellow Americans? No, our job is to hate them. Well, all right, look, that's not the left that I know and love. The left I know and love is our audience that has open minds and open hearts and is more inclusive and believes in diversity and doesn't say that they despise half the country so much that they think that they're all racist, all Nazis, and they'll never have a beer with them. They'll never even talk to them. That's not the left that I grew up in. That's not the left that I believe in. That's not the left, period. What? That's a closed-minded and
it's so funny too, because Cenk used to be the I just can't get over the outrageous hypocrisy. And we've talked about it a million times, of course, but Cenk used to be the most caustic on the whole platform in this whole community when it came to dealing with right wingers. Like his approach, his theory back in the day was that, yeah, you do catch more flies with a fly swatter than with honey or vinegar. You know what I'm saying? You gotta fucking convince people with aggression. You got to smack down their bullshit and tear down their house of cards, you know, with force and say, no, you're fucking wrong. This is stupid. This is fascist. This is racist, etc. That's how you change minds, not by pandering to people, not by saying, oh, let me see if I can convince you and sit you down and agree with you on 90% of things and work around the margins on the other 10. That's not how you're ever going to convince someone, let alone a fucking diehard Republican. It's crazy. So yeah, it's outrageous. And again, he went on left-wing shows. He went on Francesca's show. She was more than respectful to him. He went on Mark Lamont Hill's show. At the end, after the debate, Mark Lamont Hill was like, yeah, bro, I appreciate you coming on. Mad respect. You've done a lot. I think you're cool. Let's, have another conversation soon. That's exactly what Francesca said. She was like, yeah, we both got a little bit angry, but here we are. It's all good. I respect you. You respect me. Thanks for the conversation. That's how this fucking goes. Who's not down for a beer? Everyone is. What the fuck is this?
100%. It's crazy. It's his made up war and self-persecution. I think Sam Cedar referred to it as his own war on Christmas, right? He has to pretend that there's a war on the Young Turks so that he can motivate himself to give a shit. I think that's really what it is. We've talked a lot about how Cenk really wanted to transition out of doing a daily news show. And Gavin and I also have good conversations on how do we make sure that we can do this for 25 years? How do we make sure that we can do this for 35 years? If you guys are so, gracious enough to have us, how do we make sure we don't get burned out? How do we make sure that we don't cook our fucking brains like Anna Kasparian did? Because I do think it is a little too much to go live 4 or 5 nights a week for 19 years and do the same job all the time for 19 years. Like, I would have assumed that they would want to go do on the ground reporting as a way of breaking it up. I would assume that they would have wanted to make mini documentaries Vice style. I would have assumed that they wanted to branch out and try other things and allow people who were good hosts, at the time, people like John Iadarola, people like Francesca, those people would be perfectly competent and do a great job hosting the main show, while Cenk and Ann are off getting footage somewhere else and they can Skype in from their hotel and give their take on things. It would have added, a way for them to stay engaged. Cenk then decided my way to stay engaged in politics is to go to Congress. When that blew up in his face, he was really discouraged, but he brave-faced it and tried to run for president, an even more delusional prospect. But he knew he had the built-in excuse for his failure, which was the fact that he wasn't born in America.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's crazy. I was watching the Sylvester Stallone documentary Sly that's on Netflix, right? And he's like, a lot of people, I won't even try and do a Sylvester Stallone, but he's like, he's basically like, most people don't try because they would rather be able to be like, I would have made it if I had really given it my all, right? But instead they never have to grapple with failure because they didn't try and, become whatever the fuck you wanted to be. The second time, Cenk didn't really give it a shot. He knew it was all just a book promotional tour. And now he's back in square one doing a job he hates with a co-host who also hates it. So I think he has to invent this war. He has to invent this battle for himself where it's like, oh, I'm the only one who can save the left, and I'm going to do it by rehabilitating a bunch of right-wing ideas.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that Tasty's 100% correct here to point this out. Also, the issue isn't having a beer with the average Trump supporter. It's having a beer with the likes of Charlie Kirk, who's dangerous and harmful. And that I totally agree with, right? Like, I think something I really urge all you guys to do, if you have like a MAGA family member, say your grandpa or uncle is a Trump supporter, I actually 100% recommend having a beer with that person and sitting down and not judging them, but asking them, why do you support this movement? What do you like about Donald Trump? What do you actually think make America great again means? Like, how would you like to see this country be made great again? What about it used to be great to you? What about it is no longer great? These are really interesting conversations to have that can really go some ways as far as healing the divide in this country and, healing familial divides and all that kind of stuff. But people like Charlie Kirk are the reason why your grandpa's brain is as cooked as it is. You know what I'm saying? People like Charlie Kirk are responsible for the propaganda that have poisoned the older generations and the younger generations. So many of these Gen Z young men who are like Andrew Tate, brain poison and stuff like that. So no, I don't want to get a beer with fucking Andrew Tate. I don't want to get a beer with Charlie Kirk. I want to get a beer with the people whose brains have been poisoned by Andrew Tate and Charlie Kirk, so I can meet them where they're at and try to coax them out of this hole that evil capitalist propaganda scum like Charlie Kirk has gotten them into in the first place. These are the people that we have to point at and say, no, fuck you. You've divided our country. You've ruined our society. You've demonized, humanity and intellectualism and all the fucking liberal values that held our society together for so long. And now we have to do the work of repairing what you have destroyed, right? So yes, have a beer with your MAGA uncle or your MAGA friend. Talk to them and understand them and don't fucking judge them. But don't go on a tour of right-wing propagandists trying to leech off their audience in the least subtle way possible and then act like you're doing the hard work of uniting a divided country. Quite the opposite. You're contributing to the problem.
100%. That's such a great point. And the only thing I'll add is that what you accomplish when you do go on that right-wing media tour is that when the people who are the uncle, cousin, nephew, brother, that's MAGA pill, they see you and they see you on the left, and they see you come and agree with all of the things that further entrenches them. It doesn't bring them towards you. In fact, it makes them harder for people to actually reach them because they'll be like, no, I even saw a leftist who agreed with me. You're so crazy that even the left doesn't agree with you anymore. And that's what they love to say. And it creates a shield from any direct one-on-one confrontation because you're actually lucky if you are able to find somebody that wants to engage in good faith with you. I used to do it all the time when I was a bartender. It's something I kind of miss, right? Not when I'm working, but unless I had good regulars. Like sometimes I had good regulars and they wouldn't give a shit. They would call me a commie, but I would like fucking, talk to them about all kinds of shit. They were like, Missouri boys. and we would bullshit together all the time. And part of it was I was getting paid to entertain them, right? But I also wanted to be paid to challenge them. I wanted to change their minds about some things. I wanted them to have to think about how fucking horrible it would be to sleep outside in the goddamn cold before you talk shit on homeless people, right? That's not something that my boss would ever like get cracked down on. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you have to walk a line when you're doing it from the position of like an employee. Right now, I'd be totally free to just talk as much shit as I wanted to from the other side of the bar as a paying customer.
Yeah.
But at that time, I really learned like, here is how you can try and coax people very gently so you don't piss them off and you still get, your 20% and they still want to be a regular. But then, you know what I'm saying?
Totally, 100%. That's how you actually change people's minds, and that's how you actually do that hard work of reuniting the country. But it's not by chumming it up with fellow elites at Mar-a-Lago. You're not repairing the soul of the nation by cracking open a cold one with Patrick Bet David at a Miami resort. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's fucking outrageous to pretend that it is. It's insulting to the work of to the work that actual left-wing activists do in their communities, especially around this time of year. I saw some lady driving around giving out food to the homeless people on Christmas and stuff. Like, that's actual fucking hard work. Don't act like going on fucking Charlie Kirk's show to fucking have a beer or fucking, sit at America Fest and get applauded by clapping seals. Don't act like that's hard work. Don't act like you're doing something bold or courageous. No, you're trying to get attention. You're trying to get more money. You're trying to grow your audience because they've mostly fled the Young Turks. Your strategy up to this point has not worked at all, which is the funniest part of all of this.